Hey everyone, Tyler here with Financial Life Hacks, and today I'll be doing a video review on Roofstock.com. Essentially, it's a website where you can buy turnkey rental properties. Oftentimes, already have a tenant already in them. Some of them don't have a tenant in them, but they'll give you a Roofstock guarantee in order to cover a portion of the estimated market rent until a tenant is placed in there. Always been drawn to the website just for the pure nature of they do a lot of the financials and analysis for you. You know, they're pretty stringent qualifying processes for their properties. You can choose from properties from all over the country. For the most part, there's a couple states that they're not in. They do all the legwork for you. They make it really, really easy. They have a very, very efficient and easy to follow process, especially for those that are first time real estate investors or looking to dabble into getting the first rental property or your first couple. I already had a rental property in Arizona prior to trying Roofstock, but it's something that I've been wanting to try since probably around 2017. I've had my eyes on Roofstock. Always thought it was a really cool idea. Quite honestly, just one, didn't have the cash on hand to put 20% down towards a property, and two, it was always just a little suspect of it. Wanted to do my research, wanted to learn a little bit more, wasn't quite ready to move forward. Fast forward a couple months ago, I was pretty aggressively eyeing properties on Roofstock. I was favoriting ones that I liked and that met my kind of success criteria. And then, kind of out of the blue, I, came across a property and, met all my criteria. I had the money and, I made a lower offer and we kind of went back and forth and finally settled on a price. And that kind of kicked off my Roofstock journey. So that property, it's a property in St. Louis, Missouri that I closed in on, I think right at the end of July. And yes, I've had the property for right around 6 weeks, 7 weeks, something like that. Things have been going great. And so I just want to talk a little bit about, kind of the process and the journey. I was looking a lot on YouTube for Roofstock reviews, people who've done Roofstock, and there wasn't a whole lot out there. I think I saw like one or two other videos of people who, were actually Roofstock investors, had gone through the whole process, had some success, or were willing to share their, failures or challenges they ran into. And so I'll kind of walk you through a little bit of how I came across the property, go over the numbers on the property, how the property is doing today, that sort of thing. If there's any additional questions or things that I didn't go over, please don't hesitate to put in the comments and I will respond to them as quick as possible. But right now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you kind of getting to the website, getting into the search filter, some of the different filters I've used, and we'll go from there. So 1 second. So as you should be able to see now, here's the Roofstock website. So you just go to roofstock.com. I already went ahead and logged in. So over here, you'll be able to see I'm logged in. Welcome back, Tyler. I already applied one of the main filters that I use, this tried and true filter. And this is actually a filter that I got on one of the Roofstock webinars. So that Roofstock pushes out these webinars like once a week or a couple times a month on different topics. And one of them was, how to better utilize the website, how to apply filters to more efficiently get results on properties that you're eyeing. So I actually leveraged one of the filters. One of the main speakers, I can't remember who it was, Michael Album or one of those guys. He leveraged the tried and true filter himself as well as this opportunistic filter. And so essentially what it is basically it includes all these aspects, cash only, HOA. The only thing it doesn't include is Section 8, for, I guess, personal reasons, didn't want Section 8 housing. Monthly rent, 1,000 plus, that was one of the key criteria, not to get into a house that has super, super low rent. A lot of times they're houses that are, $70,000 to purchase them. While, that may be attractive, especially if you don't have a ton of cash on hand. You do have to put down 20% minimum for these properties. So if you're looking at a $70,000 property, you only have to put down $14,000 to get it. But a lot of times the rent is, 700, 750, 800. And, while that sounds great, it meets the 1% rule. A lot of times they're in rougher neighborhoods, their neighborhood scores, school scores are on the lower end. Usually attracts tenants that are not always the best. They can oftentimes be more hassle than, than not. So I wanted to avoid that. I just focus on monthly rents of $1,000 or more. At least 3 bedrooms. I'm usually shooting for 3.2 or 3.3 or 4.2, but at least 3 bedrooms, bathrooms, no real criteria. At least a 5+ average school rating. So once you click into the properties, you'll see that there's 3 school rating scores. So I personally like to add up the school scores and it be a total of 15 or higher. Obviously, better the school score, the better. If everything's a 10, 10, 10, then it's out of 30. So if you see something that's an 18 or 20 or even higher than that, obviously it's more attractive. At least 1950 or later. I didn't want to get into a property that was on the older side that may need more repairs or maybe more likely to have issues or problems. Neighborhood score rating, 3 to 5 star neighborhoods. I think on the low end, I was okay with a 3-star neighborhood, but typically I'm trying to shoot for 3.5, 4 stars. And then location. These are locations that I was interested in getting a rental property. So Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Missouri, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas. How I came up with these is, quite frankly, I lived in Florida. I like Florida. I have family in Florida. Same with Missouri. I haven't lived there, but I have family in Missouri and kind of know the area. I've always liked Missouri. And then the other states were just states watching other Roofstock videos were kind of high growth markets that were seeing a lot of appreciation, a lot of good rental value, and you can still get pretty decent deals. Texas, I've just kind of come to learn is very, very tough. That property taxes are so high. It's really, really hard to get a good deal in Texas. And to be honest, I haven't seen many properties in Tennessee or Pennsylvania. I feel like most of the properties I see are in Missouri, Indiana, Georgia, or Florida. But that's just the main filter that I use. If you're not familiar with how to use Roofstock, it's relatively straightforward. You can just click a property, go in and see the list price, see what your initial investment would be, how much money do you want to put down. I usually go right in and just drop this down to the minimum 20% down. I'm usually trying to buy the property at a little bit under what the purchase price is showing. So this one's showing 175. I may want to offer 160-ish. I think there's some stat out there on Roofstock that most properties sell within like 5% of the initial purchase price. So if they're asking 175, you may only be able to get $5,000 to $8,000 off, maybe a little bit more. But I like this, higher appreciation, cash flow. This property probably doesn't particularly pique my interest. I'm usually shooting for $200 per door, something I picked up on Bigger Pockets, the Bigger Pockets podcast. So if you look at this is $1,000 for the year. I'd be looking at trying to get something closer to $2,400 cash flow for the year. That'd be $200 a month, or $200 a door since it's just a single family home. But it is nice that it's built in 1979. It's a 3.2. Don't know much about Dickinson, Texas, but would have to do a little bit more research. But I'm going to go ahead and just jump over to the property that I purchased. I got it pulled up here. It's here in Baldwin, Missouri. Interestingly enough, I found a different property in Missouri that I originally was pursuing. I was a little bit south of Baldwin, Missouri. It's actually fairly close to a river. And after further research, found out that probably wasn't the best property because it was potential risk for flooding, and so insurance was higher, and it also wasn't as great of a neighborhood. So probably not as good of renters, as well as, not as good schools. And so I came across this property because it was in the like recommended section. Down here, there's a section on the other listings that had like properties similar to this property. And so I came across this one and just started checking it out and really liked the numbers. I think this property at the time was listed for like 165. And so I came in with a lowball offer, offered like 157 or something like that, or 155. And then he countered me at like 163. And I actually submitted the offer at 160, which was accepted. So not sure why it's showing 163 here, but I bought it for 160. I put down the minimum, 20% down. I really like this property because, right off the bat, it's built 1959, so it's not too old. Looking through the inspection report, which, you can see this shortcut right here, but there's other areas where you can access it, like inspection report 2, inspection report 1, inspection report 3. Honestly, all three of these inspection reports, 2 of them are just kind of like quick estimated repairs, and one of them is the full inspection report. After going through it a couple times, honestly, a lot of the things they recommend getting fixed are just superficial things, like there's like a minor damage to the siding, or the bushes need to be trimmed, or like the gutters are full, or pretty common things that I feel like a lot of houses, they need some basic TLC to kind of get them up and running. So nothing major, it wasn't like cracks in the roof or like leaks or major damage or anything like that. So looking at those inspection reports made me comfortable enough to delve a little deeper. I really liked that, I ultimately got this property for 160, and just looking at the property value, so based on Roofstock's analysis, comparing this to other comps in the area, they were estimating that, it was worth between 160 and 182. So this kind of caught my eye as well, because it's like, hey, I could probably buy this property, have a little bit of built-in equity. It ended up appraising at 165, which I still think is a little bit low. I'm not a huge fan of following the Zillow Z estimate, but I have this property pulled up on Zillow over here. They're showing the Z estimate at 185, the range of 174 to 200. So it's probably on the higher end. It's probably not worth that much, but it's just kind of some more reassurance on my end that I do believe I got a good deal. It's probably worth over 165. I think when I was doing my research on this property, I was looking at properties that sold in this neighborhood of similar square footage, similar kind of layout inside and quality inside, and square foot and bed and bath. And those properties were all like 170, 180. I think there were some that were pretty comparable that were even recently sold for 190. So just more reassurance, as far as my kind of fact checking and digging deeper. Another thing I noticed was checking on Rent-A-Meter and a couple other like rent estimation websites. This rent of $1,350 that Roofstock estimated is, according to some sites, it's on the lower end. I did reach out to a couple property management companies, and they were all telling me that, $1,350 is probably on the lower end. You could probably get, $1,400, $1,450. I had one property management company that was like, for sure you can get $1,500. So I think it's worth noting that we can try to raise rents. This tenant is actually moving out in January. I think it shows here on the summary tab. Yeah, lease start January 23, 2019, lease end January 23, 2021. So yeah, next January, the tenant is moving out or potentially re-signing for another year or two. So always a possibility of raising the rents a little bit. We'll have to play that by ear. Another thing that was attractive, less than $500 in immediate repairs, which right off the bat, I haven't spent any money on repairs. I'll probably do a little bit of minor fixing up, just repainting. There's like the back door was slightly damaged, so probably fix that, clean the gutters, just do some basic stuff. at the end of January if the tenant does move out, and there's that 2 or 3 week turn period. Really like that it is a 5-star neighborhood. They use a lot of different metrics to analyze the neighborhood and determine this score. The school score, 3 out of 5, better than most, to be honest, but if I could get a 4 out of 5 or a 5 out of 5, that'd be great. The neighborhood was great. I did do a tour of the surrounding area using Google Maps and doing the street view, as well as kind of just looking on Google Maps, kind of what shopping centers and businesses are nearby. It seemed like it was in a really, really nice area, pretty quiet. Didn't seem like it was near an airport. It was very, very residential, very, very family oriented, lots of parks, a couple schools. One of the videos that Roofstock put out was specifically on the Missouri and St. Louis market. So I'd watched that video a couple times just to better familiarize myself with the area and how St. Louis was doing. And turns out St. Louis has actually been appreciating pretty strongly the past year or 2 years. I didn't look as far back, but I think last year it appreciated close to 7%. So they're very conservatively showing 3% here, but it did even better than that. And you'll find with Roofstock, a lot of their estimations here are very much so on the conservative side. So you can go in here and go to custom and you can tweak everything, like what your yearly rent you think is going to be. They put in 5% for vacancy. Property taxes, they put in an estimation. I don't know if that's just a percentage of what the list price is. Property management, 8%. That's actually what I negotiated, the property management company that I went with. And on that note, so there was one property management company already in place that was handling the tenant that's already in place. I actually decided to move forward with a different property management company, kind of worked out a deal with them as far as the percent rate going forward and not having fees to switch over to them, as well as they had a lot of pros in terms of they had handymen and qualified work that was on staff. And so they could do electrical repairs and HVAC and that sort of stuff at a fraction of the going rate of some of the standalone companies out there. And just from my experience from working with other property management companies with my rental I have in Arizona, is a lot of times they mark things up or they go out to bid to all these different companies, and you end up incurring a lot of expenses just from reaching out to multiple companies, or one company goes out and checks something, they charge you $100 just to go out there. And so it just, I don't know, talking to this other property management company, it seemed like it made more sense to switch over to them, and they've been super responsive. I'm on a texting basis with them. The owner's super, super nice, so couldn't be happier with that. So other things, they keep, percentages for repairs and maintenance, capital expenditures as well, just, having reserves for the HVAC breaks or, I don't know, something major breaks. So pretty straightforward, definitely conservative. My philosophy is always, I want to take whatever money that I'm netting each month from this property and just kind of sticking it in a checking account, whether a business checking account or personal checking account, and just leaving it there, because ultimately something is going to break, there's going to be an issue, and having that money there definitely is a good safety net. I think all in all, so as you will see, I'm going to pull up this, 1 second. Just want to show you this closing disclosure. So as you'll see here in my closing disclosure, I ended up going with Rocket Mortgage or Quicken Loans. So I did a 30-year conventional fixed rate mortgage, 3.5% interest rate. I ended up buying some points just because interest rates are pretty low, and it didn't cost me that much. I think I spent like $2 or $3 grand in points to get it down to 3.5%. And to be honest, some people probably advise against that, but I don't plan on selling this property anytime soon. I'd love to hold on to it for the next 30 years and just have it so it's just cranking out cash and there's no mortgage payment. But you can see here the breakdown. I bought it for the 160,000. So put down 20%. $24,000. Loan amount, $120,000. 3.5% interest rate. Closing costs, definitely seems kind of high, $8,600 in closing costs. But as you look down here a little bit more, close to 2.4% for buying points. It cost me nearly $3,000, $1,200 for origination fee, and then just all these other things that are just kind of required as far as like, appraisal fee and pulling your credit and that sort of thing. Other closing costs. I ended up working with the seller to get a little bit of money off. I did go and pay for a sewer line, a sewer lateral inspection of the sewer line, which cost, I don't know, another like $200 or so out of pocket. Did notice some, very minor sewer stuff like roots growing into the sewer line, and very minor stuff like some things that, you probably just do like an annual sewer line cleaning or one every 2 or 3 years, and it'll be more than fine. No major, like, need to replace any pipes or anything. But I did get $350 back from the seller, which, should cover some of those sewer line cleanings, as well as fixing up the door and, maybe some minor stuff like paint and cleaning out the gutters and stuff with a handyman. So more than paid for itself. I don't know, I always like to try to work with the seller a little bit to at least try to get some, money off as a credit towards closing. Figured can't hurt to try, and they're pretty flexible and understanding. If you pay for the extra inspections, you can usually use that as leverage to get a little bit more money off at closing. So this was the final disclosure. Pretty straightforward. I wanted to also show, here is the appraisal that we did. So as you can see, appraised value of subject property, $165,000, bought it for $160,000. So, not a ton of equity based on this appraisal, but like I said, I do feel it's, probably appraised on the lower end, to be honest. Just looking at all the comps and everything, I mean, it really, really shows that it's probably closer to 170, 175, if not even a little bit higher. Just there's properties of that very, very similar square foot and, 3-bed, 1-bath, very, very similar inside that sold for, 180, 185. So, we're in a hot market right now. Not that I'm going to sell, but I think it's only going to keep going up. And, long term, I'd like to keep holding on to the property, keep having the tenant pay it down, and then, maybe get like a home equity line of credit on it to pull that money out and use it towards another property. So one other thing I wanted to show is, so I did want to go back to the analysis and talk about something real quick. So in this analysis, so going to this ledger, you can actually download this and it'll show you basically the payment history. So you can see here the tenant made a payment, April 1st, full amount, $1,350, March 1st, full amount, $1,350, February 2nd, $1,375, they had a $25 late payment. But I mean, just going back through the records, they pretty much made all of their payments. When they did miss a payment, it was like a few days late, wasn't a huge issue. Tenant seemed pretty reliable. There weren't like months and months of missed payments. There weren't a lot of missed payments. I think Roofstock also does a great job of doing like background checks on everyone and everything. I actually called the existing property management company prior to closing on this place, just kind of, getting a feel for the neighborhood and the area. And they mentioned that they had a property in Baldwin. They didn't mention this one particularly, but I'm sure it may have been the exact one. They're kind of just saying like, yeah, the tenants are great. And, they didn't disclose a ton of information because they're not allowed to, but they kind of just gave me good vibes that it was a good area, good tenants, good families. Like, you're going to get probably good quality tenants with not a whole lot to worry about, if you stick in this area and I move forward on this property. what else was I going to talk about? Let's see here some of the pictures of it. And so I never actually went and saw this property. I mean, I did everything from where I live here in Minnesota and bought this property in Missouri, even closing on it, inspection, everything was coordinated with Roofstock. Didn't go see it once, literally just looked at all the pictures, made my decisions based on all the research I did online. The process, I should probably talk about that a little bit more, but the process was pretty smooth. I could basically make offers very, very quickly on Roofstock. I didn't even need to show any financials or anything, which is, I guess, a little crazy. But I was going back and forth with the seller, making offers and counter offers. Finally got it accepted. As soon as it got accepted, a whole chain of events kicked off. Roofstock reached out to me with like a purchasing coordinator, or I guess they call it a Roofstock coordinator. They introduced themselves via email. They kicked off the process of having me provide some proof of funds. They got me to submit an earnest money deposit with the title company, which was Spruce Title. They looped in those necessarily teams, lots of introductions by email. Kind of kicked off the whole chain of, I think then it was like my due diligence period where they're setting up the inspector. They use a Roofstock inspector, which was actually very, very good. This inspector did a very great job, and I had those inspection reports previously while they're a couple months old. I was able to use those as reference, and then use this inspection company through Roofstock, which they actually paid for the inspection, and then I paid an additional like $200 or so for the sewer line inspection, just for peace of mind, because I've had issues with that with other rental properties of doing the sewer line inspection and finding like major problems. So definitely always recommend doing that if at all possible. But it was very smooth. My Roofstock coordinator coordinated every step along the process. I did have to kind of help push things along just for my own sake. I was wanting to close as quickly as possible, just because when you are moving forward with a big purchase like this, you kind of have your money tied up. You have a lot of things tied up. You really don't want to be running your credit score too many times. And I didn't want to make any other purchases until I got this wrapped up. I think we originally were shooting for a 30-day quicker close. I think it ended up probably delaying to 45 or even 50 days. So it definitely ran a little bit long. I think part of it was COVID, affected things. A lot of the lenders were just super slammed with people trying to refinance their houses, and the Roofstock team was definitely a little short-staffed as far as taking care of the just massive volume they had of people like buying properties and closing on properties and getting loans, and the lending company and title company and all that. Definitely seeing high volume, but all in all, I mean, it went great. I think one thing I'd say Roofstock could do a little better is they definitely act more as a neutral party between the buyer and seller. So I purchased a rental property before, and so when you have a real estate agent going up to bat for you, you have when I was purchasing my property in Arizona, the real estate agent was offering a lot of advice and feedback as to what to ask for as far as credits at closing, and trying to get you the best possible deal. Whereas here at Roofstock, they're really facilitating the buyer and the seller, and so they kind of remain neutral. They don't offer a whole ton of advice and feedback. They kind of like stay out of it. They'll kind of direct you towards like quote unquote best practice, which can be a little frustrating, especially if you're a new buyer in real estate. I mean, you don't know probably a whole ton about like what the do's and the don'ts are, and you may lose out on getting maybe a better deal, or getting a little bit more money off at closing, or maybe doing the financing a little bit more intricately. And so that's one area that I think they could improve on a little bit more, and maybe having a team more dedicated for just the buyers, and a separate team more dedicated for just the sellers. And so that way there can be like a little bit of them trying to help you a little bit more and offer some more advice and some more feedback, and help you get a better deal, and walk you through that whole process. But other than that, I mean, they do a fantastic job of giving you recommendations for a couple different insurance companies when you're going to get your homeowner's insurance, because you do got to provide proof of insurance to the lender, which in my case was Quicken Mortgage or Rocket Loans. They provide you, multiple property management companies to choose from, of which, they tell you which ones are Roofstock certified. So part of the Roofstock guarantee is, I'm probably paraphrasing this a little bit, but essentially you can purchase a Roofstock property, and within, I think, 30 days or so, if you don't like the property, Roofstock will buy it back from you. And I think like when they buy it back from you, they like list it back on the market, and then, within like 3 months or something, if it sells, like you get those proceeds. If it doesn't sell, they buy it from you at, some agreed upon price. So you don't, totally lose out on everything. I'm sure, you probably lose a little bit just because of all the different closing costs and fees and whatnot. But overall, that's a pretty insane deal. Like, I've never heard of a company, buying a house back from you if you don't like it. It's not quite like test driving a car. And so as long as you go with, I guess, their different vendor selections, or you don't have to pick the exact ones, but they give you a couple options. Like, as long as you go with one of their 4 or 5 property management companies, as long as you go with like, one of their couple different inspectors for the inspection company. So they give you a bunch of different options. So like, hey, this is Roofstock certified. We've done our due diligence. We think it's a great company. If you want to maintain your Roofstock guarantee, please choose one of these couple options. Otherwise, I mean, you have the flexibility of choosing your own inspection company, or choosing your own property management company, or self-managing it. They won't back you with the Roofstock guarantee, because essentially they want to set you up for success. And if you choose to forego their recommendation, then they're not going to necessarily back you if stuff hits the fan and 20 days into it and you're wanting to back out now. It's going to be kind of on you that you kind of diverted from their recommendation. So I guess that's pretty much all I wanted to go over. I think one last thing that is pretty, a lot of people don't know that Roofstock has this, but there is this roofstock.com/cloudhouse, where you can actually, it's a beta of basically taking any address for any house that's out there. So I don't know, there could be some for sale on your own street, and you want to just punch in the address, and it's not a Roofstock property at all. And so you just punch in the address, you hit analyze, and they basically use data that they find online from all these different sources, and basically create like a Roofstock listing, for this place. And they use a lot of stuff from like Zillow. So this is actually that property that I just bought. So they're pulling in this information, like Zestimate from Zillow. But as you can see, I mean, they're pulling in like the appreciation and, cash flow, analyze return. So, rent $1,650. So this is obviously pulling in higher than $1,350 it's renting at right now. But we can like tweak this stuff, tweak the down payment, go in here, it's going to show the neighborhood score, which, is cool, because maybe, you want to see what your own current house, Roofstock would calculate your neighborhood score or school store at. It gives you some quick information. You can see rent changes, the different schools it's pulling in from around here, which is pretty cool. Definitely some good schools nearby, some good to moderate schools. A lot of stuff's pulling in from Zillow. Go into the financials, see the cap rate. You can adjust all this stuff. So loan interest rate, I'd probably change that to what mine was, 3.5. So yeah, a lot of these things you can, kind of tinker around with, and you can do it for any, any property. It doesn't have to be a Roofstock property. So if there's, other properties that you're looking at just from like an analysis standpoint, this is kind of a cool tool to just play around with, and kind of, they give you so much data, you can customize it, a ton. So I don't know, I really like this tool. This is something that I don't think a lot of people who use Roofstock even know that it exists, but I watched a lot of their different webinars, and so they talked about this tool on one of the webinars, and so I've been kind of just using it here and there to check out other properties. And I guess on that note, one thing I forgot to show is I did want to show my favorites, which I think maybe if I go back, oh, here we go. So I have 68 properties that I favorited ever since that I've started looking at Roofstock. And as you can see, a lot of them have sold. These properties go pretty quickly here on Roofstock. So if you're finding a property that you think's a killer deal, they'll actually assign you a Roofstock advisor that you can set up one-on-one calls with to kind of just, get a better feel for certain markets. Or one thing that I found extremely useful is my Roofstock advisor was very well versed in insurance. He came from the insurance industry, and so he kind of talked to me about like all the golden rules around insurance for rental properties and umbrella policies and all this stuff that you want to do to protect yourself. And so going forward, like on all my rental properties, I kind of like check the boxes for all these different criteria that he told me to do for insurance quotes. So that was super helpful. And he just, he had a bunch of other rental properties throughout the country and gave me advice on, what to look for and, things to be cautious of. Some of that stuff was just that I use in my own criteria, like, looking for three bedroom, 2 baths, newer homes that don't need a lot of work, better areas that you're going to attract better tenants. Some of the stuff that, may be common sense, but I still found insightful. So as you can see, I'm tracking a lot of properties here in Ohio, Georgia, Indiana, Tennessee. On the newer side, they're all kind of floating around this like $100,000 to probably $150,000 range. But a lot of these have sold. I mean, this one's sale pending, but sold. So Roofstock does have some duplexes, which is pretty cool. You can get some really good returns on these duplexes. For whatever reason, they don't have that many, and I've always kind of shied away from the duplexes just because, it's already, sometimes a lot having a property with one tenant, but once you go to 2 tenants, I don't know, just to me, it sounds like a lot more hassle, especially, one of them could just be a royal pain and the other, maybe perfect, but just depends on your property management company and, how good they are at managing the tenants. And the property I have in Arizona, like I never hear from my property manager. I hear from her maybe like once every 2 or 3 months, which is fantastic. I mean, they know to just handle any small fix that's under like 250 or $300 just right off the bat and just bill me for it. As far as the property management company with this new property I bought in Missouri, I've not heard from them at all, other than when we first closed on the property and switched it over to them. They're texting me back and forth every day. I got my billing set up, got all the things I needed to sign set up, all that taken care of. Since then, haven't heard a peep. It's been great. It's like, been 5 or 6 weeks and it's been humming along. And my mortgage on that Missouri property is like $850 a month. And then it's bringing in $1350, minus, the management cost of like $120 or so. But overall, I mean, it's pulling in, well over $300 a month, like probably closer to $350. And obviously I'm keeping that for reserves for if anything breaks or if I have any issues. But it's been working great. I mean, it's cash flowing, it's, going up in value. I probably have some built-in equity. But as you can see, I kind of, when I do actually move forward with wanting to purchase a property, I'll go in here and just, look at a lot of the properties I favorited, kind of pop open the ones like this one's still for sale. I remember looking at that one for a little while, ended up not pulling the trigger on it just because, I don't know how great the Columbia, South Carolina market is, but thought it was a cool house. So yeah, here's the one I ended up purchasing in Baldwin. But yeah, I got a lot of properties favorited here. And my quick and easy rule of thumb, if I can like go into one of these real quick, is just go in real quick, slide it down to 20%, change purchase price by, eyeball it, probably like $10,000 or so. Just very quickly look at the numbers. I mean, cash flow, pretty close to that $2,400 a year that I shoot for. Appreciation, almost 3%. It's beating the 2% inflation, so I like that. Built in 2006, seems pretty good. 4 bed, 2.5 bath. That's pretty nice. Grovetown, Georgia, I don't know. I don't know much about Grovetown, Georgia, but that'd probably be one of the things that, I'd have to do more research into. But, curb appeal, it's pretty nice. The backyard, not the best. Kitchen's decent, kind of just looking through the pictures. Looks pretty decent on the inside, a little dark, probably needs some more lighting, which isn't the end of the world, but looks really nice on the inside, 2006. Pretty decent neighborhood school score. Tenant in there till February 2021. No HOA, no flood risk. Right outside Augusta, which is, I know, a big city in Georgia. So, right off the bat, why I favorited this is for those exact things that I just talked about. And so, from here is, I'll kind of create a list of a bunch of properties that I'm favoriting. And then, when I'm serious about buying something, I'll go in and I'll really, really drill into them. What do the comps in the area look like? Deal, or, it's 180, 178, high price for this area. What are the rents? Like, how does that 1410 stack up to what other places in the area are renting it? Is it below rent? Can we raise the rents? Is it, on the high end of the rents? And I'm probably not going to be able to get that come February when the tenant moves out. How far from Augusta? How people live in Augusta? What's like the main Augusta? So that's the kind of research that I like to do. How's the crime in the neighborhood? That sort of thing. Because initial investment, even with 20% down, 39,000 or 40,000, that's, a good chunk of money. And it's probably even a little bit higher than that once you, if you buy some points or, different lending costs and that sort of thing. So just things to take into account, but hopefully, this video was helpful and insightful to you. Like I said, if there's any other questions, you want me to dive deeper on something, please let me know in the comments and I can create a second video or do something a little bit more tailored. But that's all I have. So appreciate you guys' time today. Hopefully that was beneficial. And yeah, Roofstock all in all, great website. Glad I did it. Looking forward to adding, probably another property in the next 4 to 6 months, if not sooner. A lot of people say turnkey properties are a ripoff. You get a terrible deal. It is what it is. I work a lot and I don't have a ton of time to be, writing letters to people and, knocking on doors and going on auction websites and getting these like crazy fixer-uppers and these deals where you can like get these insane returns. I'm looking for something that's very, very minimal work. I can do it just by flicking through some pictures, get a, not the best deal ever, but a pretty good deal, make $350 to $500 a month in cash flow and have it appreciate and get some good equity and, at least start somewhere and start accumulating properties like that. That to me is more important than always chasing like the best possible deal you could ever get in your life. Because otherwise you're just going to be sitting on the sideline doing a whole lot of nothing for a long time. So yeah, thanks everyone.